So I'm asking you for your schedule from August 11th to Labor Day,
Okay.
that I'm fighting.
3 times.
We'll probably need to be, I'm planning on getting out of town, out of the state
That's like,
toward the
because
end
every
of
time I start to lose a little bit of control,
But
I get
I have
back
to
on,
look
I'll
for-
get mine back. August.
and that's very, very hard. Because even my mom, and I've got enough control over.
But you will participate? Friday, the 5th.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Giving me the reins now.
Oh, a packed audience.
We're 10 seconds late. Call meeting to order here. The clerk will note those in attendance.
All will be noted.
Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. Trust everyone had a chance to read the minutes. And if so, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the regular city council meeting on July 12. Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Minutes pass. Moving on to the minutes of the city council work session on July 19th, 2022. I noticed a typo. It's trivial, but third line, second paragraph, current plan have fallen very today's market. So whatever would make that grammatically correct, we'll make that correction. And with that, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The minutes are approved. Moving on to adoption of the agenda. Any changes or amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of adopting the agenda say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have an agenda. Moving on to item 4, consent agenda. I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of adopting the consent agenda say aye. Any opposed? The consent agenda is adopted. All right. Item 5, visitors and presentations, quarterly finance and license bureau report. Ms. Kinsvater.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Tonight I'm bringing to you the year-to-date reports from both the Finance Department and the License Bureau. The first packet on the License Bureau, on the Finance report, we'll start with that. I don't have a lot of comments to make on the revenues and expenditures. If there's any variations, we've noted those at the bottom of the pages. I did want to say one thing, though. As we look at our licensings and permits, today we receipted $424,317, and it's the final big check that's going to be coming from the school district project. So that will be going in to that licensing and permits number. So it's exciting to have that. As we look at the License Bureau report that shows the performance indicators, there's a couple of items that I would like to just comment on for you to add some additional information. At the top of the page, there's a list that shows the fees and it talks about driver's license. When we look at the cumulative transactions that we've done for the year for driver's license, in 2021, as of the end of June, we had done 1,300 driver's license applications. That was when we were primarily still on an appointment basis, so it was very limited. Through June of this year, we are at 9,215. So there is a huge uptick in that activity. And a lot of that is really focused on the change to the real and enhanced IDs. The deadline for residents and to be getting those is in May of 2023. So with us having a line, people being able to come in for walk-in transactions, we've been seeing longer lines of people coming in. A majority of the people are for the driver's license transactions. So the longer lines started right before Memorial Day. I think people were getting ready. It was the end of the month. They were getting tabs. getting their driver's license. And it's really been steady with extremely long lines through last week. So we still have some lines, but it's not as long as it has been in the last couple of months. And even though the lines are long and there can be some frustration of the customers who are standing in line, we have heard from many of these customers. They have driven here from other areas of the Twin Cities because so they might wait in our line for half an hour to an hour. In their own driver's license, in their local area, the lines are 2 to 3 hours. So even though we have these lines, our staff has been able to move the people through. We have as many people at the front counter helping our customers as we have the ability to service them. And we also have our staff rotating through what we call is line duty. So they're going through the line and talking to customers to see if they can help them with any questions, kind of weed out if people are missing information or if there's a faster way to do it. We kind of weed them out of the line so that people aren't waiting in lines for a long time and then getting up to the counter and realizing that they can't complete their transaction. As we think about all that, the state has not raised the fee that we get. So for each driver's license transaction that we do, we still get just the $8 fee from the state that we get to retain. As I mentioned, the customers have been driving from other areas of the metro, and some have mentioned that area DMVs have been referring them to us because the revenues gained from driver's license, this is what I believe, the revenues gained from driver's license, it takes longer to process those transactions with only getting the $8. That there are some neighboring DMVs that are still on appointment-only basis for driver's license, and customers have said, I visited the neighboring DMV and they let us know that White Bear Lake has a line and you can walk in and stand in line and get it, and I couldn't get an appointment, so I drove to come here, and we've helped them. There are other neighboring DMVs that are having some staffing issues, so we're seeing them, they've removed their Saturday hours, are kind of changing up their days, so they're servicing customers from 8:30 to 5, so it's more of a schedule that's similar to what we changed to last year. So I think that's a model that probably helps them. It's been a good model for us. I think that is all that I have right now, but I will take any questions that you have and answer them.
Thank you. Council, questions? Councilmember Jones.
How are the later hours going as far as traffic count concerned during those later hours that we've changed to?
Mr. Mayor and Councilmember Jones, we've been promoting the hours, so at first I think it was a little slow, but as we keep going forward and promoting them, we do have more and more customers that are coming after that 5 o'clock hour. And just a reminder, we are open until 6 o'clock on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it's a great time to kind of get in and get out, so the lines aren't typically that long at that time, but it does offer extra service time for people who work during the normal business hours. It's nice to be able to give them an opportunity to come and see us to get their transactions taken care of.
Thank you.
Councilmember Edberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Kinsfater, ask first about the License Bureau. So on a regular transaction where we get to charge $8 for the renewal, is that a loss to us?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Edberg, yes, that is a loss to us. It takes longer for us to process the transaction in the MNLARS system, which is the new system that the state is using. What they're doing is our staff, when they're entering the data from the transaction, it's real-time entry into their system so that any agency who's using that can get the data. But that takes longer to go through. They have quite a few fields. So, when we first started the these driver's license transactions, they were taking up to 45 minutes. Some of it is, I think, the staff needed to learn kind of the process. We've been able to decrease that, so it takes 15 to 30 minutes to do that. So if that $8 is covering our, when you look at that, to pay our staff and their benefits and just the operating costs, that if someone does 4 in an hour, that's $32 that we'd be making that hour, but it's hard to do 4 in an hour. So it's probably more like 2 to 3.
And yet we're doing that with an increase in efficiency, if I'm reading the report correctly. The number of transactions per hour has increased over the past, I'm going to guess last year, month
Correct.
over month, and so for year over year. Any particular thing that you attribute the increased efficiency to?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Edberg, I would think our staff, just understanding the program now that they've been using it for a couple of years, and we're really promoting, we can decrease the time that people are in the office and standing in line if they do their pre-app forms online. So we've been promoting that. And so people can go on and enter in a lot of their data, and they get a code and a sheet to print off. So when they come into the office, they can hand that to our staff person who can pull up the data, and then they're not entering, they check it over, and that can save some time. So I think those two combinations have helped, and really working with having our staff person who goes through the line and doing line duty, making sure that someone isn't getting up and going through a huge part of the process and then realizing they don't have the correct paperwork. So it's really trying to be prepared so when a person gets to the counter, they can get helped and then moved on.
So I just want to note to my colleagues, if we were operating as a private business, which some folks say government ought to operate like a business, with which I disagree, the sense of we would, if this were a private enterprise, we would be reducing time. We would reduce our opportunities for lost leaders by sending them somewhere else. We would undermine the service levels that we're able to offer. We might even look at charging folks who don't live in our community an additional fee, or finding some mechanism for extracting more, but we don't do that. And I think that's something worth noting and for us to be thinking about. What's that dynamic of economics of public service, and how does that align with, or how is that different from the economics of private sector? I have 2 other questions, if you would indulge me, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
So going to the, Ms. Kinswater, the second page of the, well, it's the first set of charts. Going down to forfeiture, we've got a revenue for $41,000 recognized in the revised budget. Is all of that only, so I know that when our police department makes certain arrests, usually DWIs, but doesn't have to be limited to that we have authority under statute to, after the case is adjudicated, we get an opportunity to, well, we don't have, the vehicle is forfeited to, and we get a share of income. Is this $41,000 only from vehicles?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Edberg, it would be a combination of drug forfeiture and DUI forfeiture. So not all of it would be vehicles, but a large portion of it. But that $41,000 that's budgeted, the year-to-date that we've collected so far is $3,292.
We're grossly underperforming.
Right. So we are not, that is, the revenues, I do not, in our revised budget, those revenues will be revised down.
All right, so I just want to share with the council, maybe some of you know this, the process of civil asset forfeiture sucks. It is rife with inappropriate takings, generally by law enforcement. We have notable examples in our Twin Cities. The Twin Cities Area Drug Task Force of a few years ago was nailed for that, and there have been other incidences. And I want us to have nothing to do with folks being able to extract cash from folks simply because they think it might have been derived from something else. the adjudication process of taking possession of vehicles used in certain kinds, okay, that's a different story. I don't have that issue. But if we ever start finding out that we're allowing folks to extract cash because they think it might come from an illegal transaction, and then the rightful owners have to sue to get their property back, that's just plain wrong. So I just wanted to be clear on that one. Last one I'd like to go to is the American Recovery Plan. So are we, so we have cash to which we have been either awarded or is perhaps still coming. Are we fully budgeted on that, and where are we sitting in terms of what cash we have received, what's still kind of in planning process? Do we have everything nailed down, or might we have some discretions out there that we should be thinking strategically about?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Edberg, in the 2022 budget, there was a budget that was adopted for those funds. We now have received all of the funds at this point, and we just received our second tranche this last month. So we have all of the funds, and we're just following forward with the plan that was adopted.
Okay.
So we have projects planned for 2022. There are projects in there that in the chart that shows what was anticipated for 2023 and 2024. The council, when looking and talking about the budget, could change what they wanted with 2023 and 24, but at this point, there are not, that most of the funds
So
were
far, our planning seems to be in place, seems to be working, rightly sized, all that kind of good stuff.
correct.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councilmember Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just, I was sitting here thinking on the License Bureau as a business, and since you brought it up, I'll voice my thought. This is an idea. I was just thinking about if I was running this as a business, and the business was basically in the city of White Bear Lake. We've got a captive audience in line, and I was just thinking about some creative things we might do with a captive audience in line that is not from our community. It sounds like a lot of them, maybe we have data on that, aren't from White Bear Lake. I don't know what it is. I mean, I'm just kind of brainstorming, but I mean, even is there a coupon book? Is there swag bag? Is there signage? Is there advertising? Can we sell advertising in the line? I mean, is there something we can do so local businesses can promote White Bear Lake? We got Market Fest on Thursday. Anybody in line this week should be told, hey, come back to White Bear on Thursday night. It's awesome. You come to Market Fest. So people come here, they stand here for an hour. Is there something we can do? So that's just my brainstorm. If you're going to talk about as a business, I'm thinking about how do we sell. So I'll just leave it at that. A little brainstorm.
All right, thanks, Bill.
We're going to sell a chunk of City Hall right out there.
Well, we might as well continue with this discussion, so let me throw this out there. No,
What do you got?
no, that's an interesting concept. I just wanted to follow up to Councilmember Edberg's comments. I mean, I'm on board with this notion of it should be run like a business, but I do admit that with regard to this, it's sort of a lock game. The fees are set by state statute. There's nothing we can do about them. And in fairness to our deputy registrar and every other one, they've been taking it in the shorts for the last couple of years. It was even worse under Midlars. Now that we have MnDrive, it is infinitely better, but it still is placing more and more burden on the deputies, and it's not nearly as efficient. So to me, it should be run like a business. The solution is, as part of our legislative strategy, pushing for a more fair fee that adequately compensates the work that's being done on behalf of our residents. So to me, that's the solution, and that should be a focus in the coming legislative session. Anyone else on the council have anything? Councilmember Jones.
Just piggyback. It's my understanding, too, that the whole new system is that the data is being input by the folks here rather than the state. So what kills me, it's double down. It's, you can't ask the businesses, and there's private, out there also, to do both, and yet they're cutting jobs at the state level and saving the money. They're double dipping, and it's yeah, that's what really says I don't want to have a license bureau, but according to certain people that know a lot more than me, Ms. Crawford, it's very difficult to unbe a license bureau. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
It's also very difficult, just to echo that, don't quote me on this, but I think there hasn't been a deputy registrar license issued by the state since like the 70s, so it is a locked game. It's impossible to get a new one. So the business model does work, and it has in the past derived revenue for the city. Again, it just comes down to the fixed so that the fees are correct, so that we actually can monetize it, because unlike another business, we can't set what our prices are. If we could, yeah, someone that's coming from out of the area, they should pay more, because they're using up local services that are paid by local taxpayers. So I digress. All right. We good? All right. Thank you, Ms. Kinsvater. Moving on to item 6, public hearings, nothing scheduled. Item 7, unfinished business, nothing scheduled. Which brings us to item 8, new business. First reading of a proposed interim ordinance authorizing studies and imposing a moratorium on the sale of cannabis products and on the establishments or expansion of tobacco shops. Who's taking this? Ms. Crawford?
I can start with it and pass it off to the city attorney after. So beginning on July 1st, it became legal to sell certain products containing THC in Minnesota. We talked about this at our last city council meeting, discussed that the Minnesota Board of Pharmacy is the state agency that oversees these THC products. There's currently no state level license required in order to sell the products, and the Board of Pharmacies does not test or approve the products prior to their sale. So as I stated, the City Council discussed this item at their July 12th council meeting, and ultimately decided that given that there's a great deal of uncertainty with the new act, it's in the city's best interest to adopt an interim moratorium ordinance to allow staff to study the topic. In addition, staff has determined that there's a need to study the current city regulations regarding tobacco sales, tobacco-related products, and city limits. So therefore, the draft proposed ordinance in your packet does include a moratorium ordinance to include tobacco shops. In your packet is the ordinance, and given the sensitivity of the matter, staff has already submitted a public hearing notice for the second reading of this ordinance to be and anticipated adoption at the August 23rd City Council meeting. So I would ask Mayor tonight that the City Council conduct a first reading of this ordinance, and with that, the City Attorney and I can stand for questions.
Thank you. Chris, do you have anything to add?
Well, Mr. Mayor and Council, would you like me to hit the highlights on this, or what would the group like?
I mean, I read through it. I'm good. Does anyone else on the council want that? I'm happy to indulge. Councilmember Edberg.
I just have, so in my mind, we have the ordinance affecting two related but different kinds of businesses. And I just, so I don't have an issue with the ordinance as it might pertain to the THC retailers. Most of them would be very new if we give them reasonable notice so as not to cause them to stock up in it and then get stuck. Fine, I don't have an issue with that one. What's the implication for tobacco operations that have so far been in legal operation? Our ordinance is what's kind of needing review. What's the impact on their ability to continue to stay in business, conduct business as they have?
Sure. Mayor, Councilmember Edberg, there is no implication for existing tobacco shops. It's the expansion or establishment of a new, or the expansion. So those who are in effect right now, there would be no implication on them.
Great. That's what I just wanted to have clarity. Thank you.
Councilmember Walsh.
Any data, how many tobacco shops fit that definition in our city? Do you know?
Without a city clerk right now, I don't have that number off the top of my head. But we have all of that licensing information on hand.
Mr. Mayor, if I might. So this is a discussion I've had with staff, that there are some retail establishments that have grown into tobacco shops. And you know, frankly, your code doesn't really address that.
Yeah.
And so there's this question, well, there's an argument, can you? You know, technically the city could take an enforcement action against these folks to say you're engaging in a use that's not allowed under the code. No, the city hasn't done that. So that's a sort of, we need to just look at that. You know, where does the council want to be with that? Do they want to expressly allow them or what? So that's really kind of, let's get our arms around that. So that was really the impetus for that category.
So we don't have an ordinance on tobacco shops right now?
Mr. Mayor and council member, it's not, tobacco shops are not an identified allowed use under your zoning ordinance.
Okay.
And so any use that's not expressly allowed is prohibited. So, but then you get into matters of degree. Your gas stations sell tobacco. So that's why I inserted a definition of tobacco shop that puts a pretty high level, 40% or more, because the focus of that shop really is on tobacco and not gasoline.
You're talking about tobacco, not vaping.
Vaping is part of the products
So
that are
vaping-
included.
So a vaping shop would be, okay. And then another stupid question, how does CBD shops fall into this business? Because I'm not super high on the THC
Right.
12 with the CBDs and the 4-H 10s.
No pun intended. So, Mr. Mayor and council members,
My ignorance is glowing.
so I took pains in the ordinance to focus on just those products that became legal to sell as of July 1. So any of the CBD, the medical, marijuana, those sorts of things that were lawful before are not affected by this. This is really targeted at just what became legal on July 1.
So we have a CBD selling ordinance.
Mr. Mayor and council members, I'm not sure that you do, frankly. And that's something that we could look at as well. But the point of the moratorium is that we didn't attempt to address that, since that has been legal for some time.
Thank you.
So is this ordinance, this moratorium in line with what you're seeing other cities do?
Mr. Mayor and council, yes. So there has been a bit of a scramble now among cities to try to figure out how to address this. Some have gone straight into licensing. Others are taking this approach. What you'll see is different theories. We've even had discussions internally in our office about the scope of a moratorium like this. This moratorium focuses on sale. It does not get at manufacture, does not get on distribution, does not get at testing. My thought was, let's focus on kind of the public-facing portion of this, and that the sale is really something that's traditionally within the scope of the city's power. You license tobacco sales, you license liquor sales, you don't get involved in manufacture of liquor or distribution. So kind of in the same frame of mind, just focusing on the sale part is the approach that I recommend the city take, and what I've taken in other cities as well.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Jones.
On page 3, on section I, it does allude, it includes electronic delivery devices.
Correct.
So that should cover us on whether it's nicotine devices or whether it's THC devices.
Okay. Anyone else on the council have any questions? All right, we've had our first reading, and this is set on for a second reading on August 23rd. Item 9, discussion, nothing scheduled. Item 10, communications from the city manager. Ms. Crawford.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have just some upcoming events to share quickly with you. So this is the last week for Market Fest. So the Environmental Advisory Commission, Park Board, and Bear Tracks, the AV Shuttle, will be part of the Environmental Resource Fair this week. Many of our staff members will be there. Night to night, previously known as National Night Out, is Tuesday, August 2nd. There will be various neighborhood meetings. A couple of the council members I know are planning to participate with police and fire, so that will be wonderful. And Bear Tracks, again, our AV shuttle, there's a ribbon cutting and media event on Friday, August 5th at 12 p.m. at the YMCA. The mayor and I will be participating, and all are welcome to attend. There will be, as I said, media event with ribbon cutting. So, and then safety camp is Tuesday, August 9th from 8:30 to 4:30 at Podman Park. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you. Questions for Ms. Crawford? Seeing none, that concludes our business. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. We're adjourned.
No, that's a record.
Because I had 5 minutes, but I thought that's a long time to vamp. It's like, tell us more about new tracks. Tell us more about this.
Oh my God, thank you. No. Well, and
But honestly, I
just pointed to this.
just wanted to get the hell out of here.
I know.
Oh, will you pull one thing, you pulled something up?